pain that never ends, skin stripped from bone, venom burning through flesh, drop by drop. In mythology and folklore, punishment was terror. These are the stories meant to scar entire generations, warnings written in blood and agony. This is Pantheon mythology, and these are the most depraved punishments from mythology and folklore. You know, I'm starting to think that this could make a good series. Let me know if you agree. Also, if you too scar entire generations, then check out Pantheon Apparel, our clothing brand inspired by myths, legends and folklore. We ship worldwide and are rated excellent on Trustpilot. Link in the description. According to Homer's Iliad, Niobe, the queen of Thebes, had 12 children, 6 sons and 6 daughters. Other poets like Ovid gave the number as 14, 7 and 7. It doesn't matter which number you accept, because what happened next wiped every one of them from the earth. Niobe was the daughter of Tantalus, the wife of Amphion, the king who had once raised the city walls of Thebes with the sound of his lyre. She had everything, a throne, wealth, a house full of children. That abundance became her sin. One day the people of Thebes gathered to worship the goddess Leto, mother of Apollo and Artemis. They filled the temples with offerings, praising the goddess who had only given birth to 2 children. Niobe arrived with her brood and laughed at the thought of Leto being honoured over her. She demanded that people stop their rites to the goddess and worship her instead. She, the queen, the mother with many children, the true figure of abundance. The insult reached Leto, but she didn't appear herself. She didn't need to. She had her children. Apollo descended first, the god of archery, music, prophecy, and plague, his golden bow gleaming as he approached the gymnasium where Niobe's sons trained. They were young men, proud, their bodies honed by spear drills and athletic contests, completely unaware that their lives were about to end. Apollo raised his bow, and the slaughter began. Each arrow flew with precision. One boy's throat was torn open mid-laugh, the sound gurgling to silence as he collapsed in the sand. Another had his chest split apart, the arrowhead punching through flesh and bone with unstoppable force. A third was struck through the spine before he could even turn to face the god who had ended him. There was no chance to fight back. There was no chance to plead. 6 arrows, 6 sons dead. Their blood soaked the dust of the training ground where they had stood moments before, their bodies twisted and still beneath the unblinking gaze of Apollo, who fired each arrow with the same cold, surgical calm. Artemis followed soon after, the twin sister of Apollo and the goddess of the hunt, wild places, and sudden death. Where her brother struck from a distance with the unrelenting force of plague, Artemis moved like a shadow through the palace courtyard. She found Niobe's daughters gathered close to their mother, still unaware that the slaughter would continue. Artemis lifted her bow, and silence fell over the courtyard. The only sound was the whoosh of arrows cutting the air. The eldest daughter collapsed first, a shaft buried deep in her ribs. Another tried to shield her younger sister, spreading her arms in vain, and was struck through the heart. The goddess moved without hesitation, her expression unreadable as she unleashed arrow after arrow. Each shot was final. A girl fell face first into the marble flagstones, bracelets clattering against the stone. Another's body spun before crumpling at her mother's feet. The sisters dropped one by one, their cries echoing off the palace walls, and then disappearing entirely as Artemis lowered her bow. All 6 daughters lay dead in the place where they had once played, their bright garments soaked red, the mother staring down at them in mute horror. Artemis had left nothing but a silence so complete that even the birds in the palace gardens stopped singing. Niobe's world ended in that single day. Her husband, Amphion, unable to live with the grief, killed himself. The queen, surrounded by the blood of her children, fled east, her body shaking and her voice long gone from screaming. She climbed to the heights of Mount Sipylus in Phrygia, and there, the poets say, she was transformed into stone. A spring runs down that rock face even now, a stream that locals in antiquity swore were Niobe's eternal tears, proof of what happens when a mortal dares to challenge a god. Niobe's punishment was absolute. Apollo and Artemis, they erased her legacy, her future, and left her frozen in grief for eternity. To measure yourself against the gods was to invite ruin beyond comprehension. Loki had lived among the gods of Asgard for years, a companion in their halls but never truly one of them. Clever, charming, and dangerous, he was the fire they could not hold, a trickster who shifted constantly between helping and harming, a figure they could neither trust nor ignore. That dangerous balance finally snapped with the death of Balder, the most beloved of all gods. Balder's mother, Frigg, had forced oaths from every living thing not to harm her son, but she overlooked the mistletoe. So small, so weak it seemed beneath notice. Loki found the flaw. He cut a dart from the plant, a thin shaft of death masked in something that looked harmless. Why? The sources never say. Loki's motives are a blank, as if the act itself was enough. He was a destroyer, and Balder's death would hurt the gods in a way that nothing else would. He placed the dart in the hands of Balder's blind brother, Hurtur, and guided his aim. The throw struck true, the shaft pierced Balder, the god fell dead before he even touched the ground. The light of Asgard was gone, snuffed out in an instant, and grief hardened into fury. Loki fled. He built a house high in the mountains with 4 doors so he could watch every direction and wove a fishing net as if he could prepare for what was coming. But the gods came anyway, and when they arrived, Loki burned the net, dove into the river, and transformed into a salmon to hide in the current. They dragged the waters with a net of their own, sweeping closer until Loki tried to leap it. That was when Thor reached down and caught him by the tail, wrenching him from the water like a fish pulled from a hook. What came next was annihilation. The gods took Loki's sons, Vali and Nafi. They transformed Vali into a wolf and set him on his brother. Loki was forced to watch as the wolf tore into Nari, ripping him apart piece by piece, his screams echoing through the cave until they abruptly stopped. The gods dragged what remained of Nari across the stone floor, taking his entrails still warm, still slick with his blood, and used them as chains. Each length was wrapped around Loki's arms and legs, pulled tight until the flesh split. When the last knot was tied, the gods hardened the entrails into iron. Loki was now stretched across 3 massive stones, his body mangled, bound in his son's remains. Above him they hung a serpent, its jaw unhinged, its fangs dripping venom. The poison fell drop by drop onto Loki's face, burning holes through his skin. His wife, Sigyn, stayed with him, holding a bowl to catch the venom. But when she had to turn away to empty it, the poison struck. Loki screamed and thrashed, his body convulsing so violently that the Norse believed the earth itself shook, the sound of his agony crawling up through the ground. There would be no reprieve. Loki would remain in that cave until Ragnarok, chained by the blood and entrails of his son, every drop of venom a reminder of the god's justice to make him feel every moment, every breath, as a curse. Naraka is not one hell, it is thousands, a sprawling labyrinth of suffering, each pit designed to match the crime that sent you there. This is karmic retribution stripped of compassion, and there's no escape until every ounce of your debt is repaid. Once you arrive at Naraka because of the life you led, every action you took, every cruelty, betrayal, or abuse is tallied, and when your karma tips the scale too far, the punishment is automatic. Yama, the god of death and justice, dispatches his enforcers, the terrifying Yamadutas, to fetch you. They come in silence. They chain you through the flesh and drag you into a realm where time itself feels meaningless. The gates of Naraka arise before you, towers of bone and iron so vast they block out the horizon. Once you cross them, there is no leaving. Each Naraka is a world unto itself, and each one exists for a specific torment. In Tapana, iron cauldrons of boiling oil stretch as far as the eye can see. You are hurled into the scalding depths alongside others, your bodies thrashing, your skin blistering and splitting. When you sink beneath the surface and the oil fills your lungs, there's no death, only more pain. You're pulled out, half-conscious, and thrown back in again. In Shukara, you are stripped naked and bound upright. Knives slice your skin away in thin strips, careful, methodical, peeling you like a fruit. The pain is so sharp it blanks the mind, but there's no fainting, no release. When you are nothing but muscle and tendon, salt and ash are rubbed into the wounds before you are rebuilt, and the tormentors begin once more. In Raurava, serpents as thick as tree trunks erupt from the earth. They coil around you and force themselves into your body, through your mouth, your ears, even your eyes, eating your organs from the inside out while you claw at yourself in vain. In Maharaurava, fire-born beasts stalk the pits, tearing your body apart chunk by chunk, devouring you alive before piecing you back together to feed again. Other Narakas are not so quick. There are plains of razors where you must crawl for centuries, every movement slicing you to ribbons until your bones grind against the steel beneath. There are mountains that collapse on top of you, crushing you flat before your body knits itself together so the weight can kill you again. Some hells drown you in rivers of human waste until you convulse and choke, unable to breathe, while others freeze you solid, your blood turning to ice until your limbs crack and splinter. Time in Naraka does not flow like the world above. A single day can feel like 1,000 years. The sentences are not measured in days or lifetimes, but in kalpas, epochs so long that language cannot truly capture their span. When you think your punishment is over, you are merely transferred to another hell, and the process begins anew. And when, after unthinkable eons, your sentence is finally complete, there is no guarantee you will leave. Naraka feeds on memory. The pain brands itself so deeply that even if you are reborn into the world of the living, you carry it with you, and many are dragged straight back, the karmic debt still too heavy to escape. This is the horror of Naraka. It's a machine designed to dismantle you one scream at a time, until hope itself rots away. Here there is no judgment day, no redemption, only punishment, stretched across spans of time so vast they crush the mind. In Naraka, pain isn't a phase. It's the only reality you will ever know. The Gashara Kuro are giant skeletons, towering far taller than a human, so massive they can blot out the stars as they pass. But these are no ordinary monsters. They are born from mass death, the unburied bones and bitter grudges of people who died in famine or battle, left to rot where they fell. Each soul denied the dignity of burial fuses with the next, hatred and hunger binding them together into one towering skeletal form. Its existence is torment, It roams the countryside after midnight, rattling through the dark in a body that is nothing but a monument to suffering. It is driven by only one instinct: hunger, a gnawing, eternal craving that can never be satisfied. It moves silently, with a stealth deceptive to its size. The only warning of its approach is a faint ringing in the ears, a death knell that means you have already been chosen. When it strikes, it does so without mercy. A skeletal hand the size of a house crashes down from the dark, pinning you to the ground with a strength you cannot fight. Its jaw opens impossibly wide, closing around your head with a single, devastating bite. The Gashara Kuro drains your blood and devours you whole. And yet, no matter how many victims it claims, the hunger only grows. The Gashara Kuro itself is the punishment. It is condemned to wander endlessly in a state of perpetual starvation, a creature made from souls who will never find rest. Each victim it consumes does not bring peace. It simply feeds the same void that birthed it. This is what makes the Gashara Kuro so depraved. It is not justice or karmic balance. It is the product of neglect, the collective anguish of the dead, abandoned in life and forgotten in death, fused into an unstoppable horror. The souls within it are as much its prisoners as its power. And when you hear that faint ringing in your ears at night, there is no escape. These punishments were never about balance. They were warnings etched into myth, designed to terrify anyone who heard them. They showed that suffering could be endless, that you could be flayed alive, chained in darkness with venom dripping onto your face, or trapped in a hell that would never let you go. And this is only the beginning. There are far more punishments out there, waiting in the stories we haven't told yet.